Welcome to round 2 of the Abstrakt Sales Academy. I'm Ben Newman, and you know I am fired up to dive in today to talk about your environment for greatness, to talk about the 3 proven C's of sales, to share some victory language, and to also go back and review your prize fighter day. Now let's start with a question, really a question for you. What is one big goal that you have right now that fires you up, that inspires you, and you are ready to figure out the process that will put you in position to achieve that goal? Now I know in round 1 we talked about attaining belief in some of your goals and passion for the process and prize fighters, but I just want you to pick one. Think about what that big goal is. Now, let's talk about the Super Bowl. Why the Super Bowl? Because when I think of the Super Bowl, I mean, what is bigger than the Super Bowl? Even if you don't like sports, the Super Bowl is big for everybody. It's one of the biggest sporting events in the world. Even the individuals that don't like football, they're tuned into the Super Bowl. They want to see the commercials. They want to see the halftime show. So I always think of the Super Bowl when I think of thinking big. Here's what's amazing about the Super Bowl. You have 2 teams, right? One that wins their conference, the NFC. You have one team that wins the AFC, and those 2 teams come together for one big game to win the World Championship, the Super Bowl championship, to hoist that Lombardi trophy. So just like you, when I asked that question, what's your big goal? Maybe you envisioned yourself achieving it. There was an expectation that you could do it. You believe in it. And you can see yourself hoisting that Lombardi trophy. We'll think of it as the Lombardi trophy for you, but hoisting that big goal, achieving that goal. What it comes down to achieve the goal of winning a Super Bowl is the process. And when you set a big goal, here's what we know. There will be adversity. There will be challenge. But for you, you have to ask yourself the question, are you willing to be mentally tough enough to fight through the adversity, to fight through the challenge, to reframe and to stay focused on the solutions? See, here's what's incredible. These 2 teams come together, but they come together after an entire season that starts with occasional training sessions, a training camp, 17 weeks of pounding of the body, mentally, physically. Then you go through the playoffs, then you win the game, and then here's what happens. There's a 2-week layoff. So you win the championship game. Can you imagine? You're fired up with emotion. You're ready to play in the big game, and you have 2 weeks off. You have to wait for 2 weeks. You have to go through practicing. You have to go through all the preparation. You have to show up to the site of the Super Bowl 5 to 6 days early. You go through all the media days, cameras in your face, microphones in your face, the grueling exposure to the world as you would be on the big stage. Then the distractions come. The distractions of family. I mean, you're playing in the Super Bowl. You'd be hearing from family that you hadn't heard from in 10 years, 20 years, maybe since you were a little kid wanting that perfect seat right on the 50-yard line. Can you imagine going through a 2-week period of time like that? I know for you on your journey when you set those big goals, there will be your own distractions, your own adversity, your own challenge, just like these players faced when preparing for the Super Bowl. Then you get into the big game. Finally, game day comes. All the anticipation of that whistle blowing, kickoff, and being ready to play. Then the game starts. This year you had the Patriots and you had the Seahawks. Look at that game. The Patriots, down by 2 touchdowns. Really, it never seemed like there was much momentum, really, that the Patriots could get anything going offensively. But in true New England Patriots form, they stayed connected to the process that it would take to drive success. When you watched that football game, you saw that they stayed committed to the team members, the offensive line doing their work, the running backs doing their work. Everybody owned their piece to the puzzle, and they continued to attack the process because that's the expectation they have as an organization. And even when at the end of the game, you saw Russell Wilson drop back and throw the improbable pass to Curse, who falls on the ground, kicks the ball up. 2 defenders pass by. The ball lands in his chest. He brings it in. They're now on the 4-yard line with about 40 seconds to go. The New England Patriots still stayed committed to the process. Are you willing, when you face adversity and challenge, to stay committed to the process? You see, that's what creating an environment for greatness is all about. That's why I shared those mental training tools with all of you, because I know that they work. They are proven strategies that have been put to the test by top sales professionals all over the world, top companies all over the world, athletes in the NFL, the PGA, professional baseball, boxing. These are proven tools that can help you in those times of challenge and adversity. And when you stay committed to the process, it can make the difference. The Patriots were faced with potentially having given up the game, yet each individual on defense played their part. Russell Wilson drops back for that short pass, and Malcolm Butler makes the interception that results in the New England Patriots winning the Super Bowl. Now, some of you may be asking the question, how does he know the details of preparation for the Super Bowl so well, and the game plan and the story and all this stuff about the Patriots? How do I know? Because I was part of the Patriots' run this year. After they won that Super Bowl, I was on the field celebrating with the team. I was actually the first person standing in line in front of the stage when Robert Kraft was handed the Lombardi Trophy by Dan Patrick. Even the cameramen behind me, I'm about 6'2", so I'm a little bit of a bigger guy. They were saying, "Sir, you need to duck down, you need to duck down." When they passed the Lombardi Trophy down from the stage and they passed it to the players, I was actually close enough, I could have reached forward and kissed the Lombardi Trophy. Now, that probably wouldn't have been appropriate for me to do that, but I could have done it. So there I was right in the midst of this celebration with the Patriots. I know the story so well because I was with the Patriots at training camp. They had a joint training camp in Richmond, Virginia with the Washington Redskins. I was there from the beginning of the season. I watched what the expectation of greatness looked like from the beginning of the season, from training camp. When the whistle blew for training camp to start that day, I watched Tom Brady head out to the fields. It was a dual practice. Patriots on one field, Redskins on another before they joined to practice against each other. And Tom Brady, all business, had his helmet and he walked straight to that practice field and he went to work. The New England Patriots have an expectation of greatness. They have an expectation that the process makes the difference. They faced plenty of adversity during the season. Heck, they started 2-2. Many people don't even remember that 2-2, and people were starting to say, is Tom Brady done? Does he still have what it takes to be successful? And the answer was staying committed to the process. Belichick didn't pick a new quarterback. Belichick stayed with their leader, the man who sets the expectation for the rest of the team to understand what it means to go to work. My dear friend, the Hall of Famer Aeneas Williams, had the opportunity to speak to the Patriots a couple years ago. The individual sitting in the front row taking notes was Tom Brady. He actually stood up during the talk and looked at everybody and said, "This is what we need. It's the difference." The mental training tools that I share, I signed a copy of the Mental Toughness Playbook, which you had the opportunity to download at freeplaybook.net. I signed a copy for Gronkowski. I signed a copy for other players. And I had the opportunity to build an unbelievable special relationship with one of the running backs, Jonas Gray, an individual who's become like a little brother for me. He's family. I was with him the entire season. Talk about adversity. Talk about challenges that you'll face on your journey. I watched it from training camp to the hoisting of the Lombardi Trophy. And the thing I recognized that was consistent from start to finish was no matter what happened in that season, they continued to attack the process. So for you, on your journey in your life, for your companies, how important is it for you to attack the process every single day? See, it's a choice for you. I asked earlier, what is that big goal for you? What did you think about? You know, maybe it was running a marathon. You can see yourself crossing that finish line. Maybe it was hitting a big sales goal and being honored at the big company function, the awards banquet. Whatever it might be, remember what we shared, and we're going to talk about at the end of our time together today. Your prize fighter day. It's your ability to have those big goals, to pull it down, to put it right in front of your face, and to identify the process it will take to achieve success. Jonas Gray, who started on the practice squad with the Patriots this year, stayed committed to a prize fighter day, to the process, to the belief that not only would he be active, he would be a Super Bowl champion. Now for the rest of his life, because of his commitment to the process, he's a Super Bowl champion, and he ended up leading the New England Patriots in rushing yards and rushing touchdowns for the regular season. And he started on the practice squad. So no matter where you are right now on your journey, you have the ability to believe in yourself and to identify the process that will drive success, to create the environment that will drive success. Anything is possible when you believe and you put your max effort behind that belief. That's how Jonas Gray wound up on the cover of Sports Illustrated this year, having started the season at practice squad. That's how I've seen individuals all over the world that we've worked with in financial services get to what's called the top of the table. That's like the top 0.1% of financial advisors in the world, the top of the table. We've worked with numbers upon numbers upon numbers of individuals who have hit the top of the table in Canada, the United States, in Singapore. These successful individuals share a passion for the process. They've identified the process that drives success. They understand the environment that will create greatness in their lives. So let me ask you a question. And if you're watching this with other individuals in your company, you don't have to raise your hands. Just think about this. Since round one, have you implemented some of the proven mental training tools from the playbook? If I were to ask you, what does your environment for greatness look like? Is part of that environment the mental training tools? Because I've seen it work for Super Bowl champions. I've seen it work for successful entrepreneurs all over the world, and I know it can work for you. If it's not part of your process yet, does it make sense to implement some of these strategies? Because you'll see consistency in these strategies throughout the year, and what you will understand is that these strategies can be the difference to help you with your thinking. And it's so important for us to focus on your thinking and your daily behaviors, which will then drive your ability to implement the sales strategies, the psychology of sales, these 3 C's of sales we're about to dive into. But we have to tackle your environment for greatness. So at this point, just take a pause. If you have to, pause the video. Take time, look at the worksheet. What does your environment for greatness look like? Which mental training tools can be the difference for you? If you've already implemented them, why have they worked since round one? Now let's dive into these 3 C's of sales. Courage, customization, and control. Now, before we dive into these 3 C's of sales, here's what I want to share with you. I want to share with you that I have done a tremendous amount of research on these 3 C's of sales. There's over 20 years of my own personal experience in sales. There's the research of 2 authors of a book called Challenger Sale. They own a company called CEB. They studied 7,000 sales professionals to identify what enables a salesperson to be successful. There's research from Al Granum. Now, Al Granum wrote a book called Building a Financial Services Clientele, just for financial services. But I'll tell you, any company selling anything could utilize the daily habits that are talked about in that book to drive success. Granum's beliefs, his unbelievable legacy, are part of these 3 C's of sales. There's also the research from American Funds, a financial institution that did blanketed research on what it takes for salespeople to be successful, to have a successful sales process. All of the research, all of the reading, hours of interviews, all of that time I've put in is to be able to deliver these 3 sales to you, to deliver the impact you can have with the people you serve every single day as you help them write the stories of their legacies. So let's dive right in. The first C is courage. Courage. You know what I love about little kids? What I love about little kids is they have no filters. Kids just say what's on their mind. It's truly amazing. I call them courage questions. Little kids, right? You get that little feeling in your gut. They don't think about it. They just say it. What do we do as adults? If we know we need to say something to a client to get a yes or a no, oftentimes we don't ask those tough questions. We build a skyscraper in our imagination as why it's a good idea to not ask the question, which oftentimes leaves us at a maybe. I've been in sales long enough. I'm still in sales. Yeses and nos are fantastic. The maybes will drive you crazy. Courage questions can be the key to you getting yeses or nos, to have a realistic pipeline, a realistic hot list, a realistic open case inventory, which will drive your performance. So courage questions. Here's a story. Now this is kind of a basic example. It wasn't even that big of a deal, but it really illustrates the use of courage questions well. So a couple of years ago, we had this neighbor. Now, if any of you know where I live, in order to protect his identity today, we're just going to call him Doug. So this neighbor of ours used to park his minivan right in front of our house every single day. I mean 365 days a year. And what made it unbelievable is that Doug had his own garage where he could park his minivan. He had a spot in his own driveway where he could park the minivan, and he had a spot in front of his house where he could park the minivan. But every day he parked it right in front of our house. I'll never forget, there was one evening, I was with my wife Amy in our kitchen, and we were having a conversation, and I'm like, babe, do we need to put a sign out in front of the yard that says, don't park your car there anymore? A few months go by. It's about 5:30 in the evening, standing right out on the front porch. I've got my little man Isaac with me. At the time, he's probably about 4.5, 5 years old. And here we see Doug walking out of his house and walking down the street. And Doug walks by the house and he waves and he says, hey Ben, how you doing? And I said, hey Doug, how are you? And then all of a sudden, here's Isaac, who looks up and he says, hey Doug, we're going to put a sign in our yard that says, don't park your car there anymore. Doug is like on a dead sprint going down the street. I'm like ready to go back into the house. And here's Isaac who's standing there like this. That's right, I did Daddy's dirty work. And you know the best part of the story? They don't park their car there anymore. Now, I know it's a simple story. It wasn't that big of a deal, but it illustrates it so well. You see, I'm not perfect with these concepts either. There's things that sometimes I need to do a better job of following through on. That's why these principles are so important. It's a reminder for me in my daily process. We have to choose to be courageous. That's a choice. How easy would it have been with a neighbor? We've lived in this house 7 years to just say, come on, Doug, why do you park your car there? I could have had fun with it. But instead, I chose to not take action, to not say anything. How many relationships do you currently have with clients? Open opportunities, open inventory, hot list, where you haven't asked the questions that need to be said. How many times have you allowed a client, you just let them off the hook? Maybe they bought something, but it wasn't what they really wanted. It wasn't what they really needed. You just wanted to make a sale. I'm being this direct on this issue because I care that much. It's your opportunity to ask those courageous questions. I know they can be tough. I know they can be challenging, but oftentimes when you get that little feeling in your gut, when you ask the tough questions, it'll build a real, strong relationship. You'll get yeses, you'll get nos that'll drive and impact how you think about the decisions you make every day, but it'll also enable you to be the real catalyst to drive success for the legacies that your clients are writing every single day. The use of courage questions is so important. Your ability to be courageous in sales can be a huge difference in the impact that you make and the growth that you have. The second C is customization. It's all about the importance of providing options. Now, let's take the example of somebody going to buy a Mercedes-Benz. Let's take a look at two types of sales individuals. We're going to describe salesman A, and then we're going to describe salesman B. And then collectively, we're going to take a vote, and you're going to be able to say who you would rather buy a car from, salesman A or salesman B. So here's the context. Here's the way it'll work. I'm the car salesman, and I get a call from an individual who wants an S500 Mercedes, black on black. Why do they want this car? They want this car because they recently had a friend who had an S500 Mercedes, and they loved the car. They fell in love with it. They said, I absolutely have to have this black on black S500 Mercedes. So they call me, and they say, do you have an S500 Mercedes? I say, absolutely. So they come to see salesman A. They come into the dealership, I shake their hand, call him Jim. So I say, hi, Jim. Jim comes in, I shake his hand. And I say, Jim, we've got the car all washed, the S500, the exact car that you wanted. The porter pulls it up, it's clean, it's ready, let's take it for a test drive. Jim comes and he gets in the car. We take the car for a test drive. I show him the heated seats. I show him the music. I show him how beautiful this car is. I tell him about how the seats contour to your back when you get to a certain speed. We're going through the entire car. He's loving the car. And all of a sudden, as he's test driving, Jim looks over and he says, how much does the car cost? And I said, well, Jim, this particular model, the S500 black on black, exactly the one that you said you wanted, that your friend had, it's about $2,000 per month. Jim about drives the car off the road. I'm like, Jim, you got to keep your eyes forward. You got to keep your eyes forward. He says, $2,000 a month. I said, okay, I've got an idea. It sounds like that was a little higher than you anticipated. Let's drive the car back to the dealership. He turns the car around. We head back to the dealership. We get out of the car. I go and I say, Jim, this is the car that you wanted. The S500 black on black, just like your friend. Here's my idea. Why don't you go home and think about it? Just think about it, Jim. This is exactly the car that you wanted. Any thoughts, questions that come up, give me a holler and we can chat about it. I'll look forward to following up with you soon. Jim goes on his way. That is salesman A. Now, salesman B. Jim calls me, salesman B. Exact same scenario. He wants a black S500 Mercedes. Exact same scenario. I say, Jim, come on down to the dealership. He comes down to the dealership. I explain to Jim, we've got the car. The porter just cleaned it. He pulls it up. Car's looking crisp, beautiful. He gets into the car. It's cold outside. I say, let's put on those heated seats. Let's turn up the music. Look how beautiful the car is. The car contours to your back when you get to a certain speed. Jim's loving the car. I say, Jim, hit the metal, man. Let's just drive this thing. Hit the gas. Let's go. He takes off. All of a sudden, he turns. He looks. He says, how much does the car cost? I say, Jim, this particular model, it's exactly the one that you wanted, the S500 black on black. It's about $2,000 per month. He about drives the car off the road. I look at him and I say, Jim, it sounds like this particular model is a little more than you anticipated spending. Here's an idea that I have. Let's go back to the dealership. You had mentioned you have some time today. I would love the opportunity to really educate you on the full line of Mercedes-Benz. I know that the S500 is exactly the car that you had mentioned you wanted, but I have a beautiful CLS 550 I think you'd enjoy driving, black on black. Gorgeous E500, black on black. And there's actually a C-Class Sport black on black. It's a beautiful car. I know it's not the car that you came in for, but it's a beautiful car. I'd love to educate you on Mercedes-Benz, test drive all these cars, answer any questions, thoughts that you have. I would love to be the one to help you with purchasing a Mercedes-Benz. Jim and I test drive all 4 cars. We have an unbelievable experience. I then say to Jim, Jim, I know we covered a lot of ground. I know the S500 was a little more than you wanted, but I think we have some good perspective. We've gone through some options that are available for you. I look forward to the opportunity to follow up with you. Let me know any thoughts, questions that you have, and I would love to be the one to help you get into a Mercedes-Benz. I shake his hand, and Jim leaves. So question for you. Who would you buy the car from? How many of you would buy from Salesman A? If I were with you right now on the other side of this camera, I bet I'm not seeing too many hands up. How many of you would buy from Salesman B? Every time I've shared this example, I've shared it in Singapore, Costa Rica, Canada, all over the US. Everybody always says Salesman B. I then ask, why? Why Salesman B? The unanimous answer is always options. They love that Salesman B provided options. Now, we've all been in this sales situation. You're sitting down with a client, and maybe it appears that revenue-wise they're at 10 million, 15 million, and you're thinking, I could just sell this big product that costs X. They've got the money for it. But oftentimes you may not understand the true situation of everything going on with the company. That's why I would encourage you to ask those courage questions, to understand the full scenario, because it will enable you to provide the appropriate solutions. Provide those options. If you're just selling a single option, what happens is the individual that you're selling to feels like it's almost a confrontation. It's like you're selling across the table. Your goal should be that you ask those tough questions. You understand the wants, the needs, exactly what the client wants, so that you can speak to those wants and needs, to go through a series of options so that they have choices, rather than just one option. Because when they have one option, like I mentioned, it's like you're selling across the table. The goal should be that you feel side by side as the catalyst, sitting on the same side of the table, working through the appropriate solution for them to make the best decision for them and the company. Now, if you do the right job as a sales professional, you'll find, even though you're providing options and you're thinking, well, I know that they've got a bigger budget and maybe I'm going to end up making a smaller sale. Forget about the result. Forget about your needs. At this point in time, forget about the goals. Do what's right for the client. And you'll get those goals if that's important to you. You'll have a bigger legacy if that's important to you. You'll drive more success. You will achieve more when you make it all about the client and your service to the client rather than personal needs or trying to make the big sale. And the client will count on you as the expert to make the appropriate recommendation. You provide one option, it's the only option. You provide 4, 3, 5, make it simple, educate. People will still count on you to make that recommendation, to give them the power to choose. And when they leave saying, I got exactly what I wanted, you won't have those phone calls anymore when you walk into the office the next day having the fear that, well, I only showed them one option, but they bought it. I knew they could buy it. You'll have no fear of that red light being on, that you're going to have a voicemail that they had reluctance of what they purchased. Drive the ability to educate people by providing options. The client will be fired up and excited to buy. They'll feel like you're sitting right next to each other, and you'll win in the end as well. Courage, customization. The third C, it's control. Now this one is pretty interesting. Control is all about the client feeling like they are always in control, even though maybe you maintain control of the situation. In order to gain control, sometimes you actually have to give the client something that they think they want, even if it's the wrong solution. So what do I mean by this? Let's put it in the form of another story. If you keep in mind and you pay attention, I always like using stories to sell. When I shared courage, what did I share? I shared a story. Customization, I took you through a story. Now with control, I'm going to take you through another story. The reason why I use stories is because American Funds spent $300 million researching the most important factor in the sales process, and they found that it's using stories to sell. Pretty interesting that years before I read that research, I had done my own research on 7 psychological sales triggers, which is in a round later on in the year. Number 1, using stories to sell. That's why I use stories. Pay attention to your ability to use stories to connect with people emotionally to drive their decision making. So control. Here's a story. Remember what I said, sometimes you have to give a client what they want even if you know it's wrong. So when I came out with the book, Own Your Success, the first few books that I had written, they were actually self-published. Now with Own Your Success, it was a manuscript, it was a fable. I felt like we had something strong that could become a bestseller. So I wanted to go through a bigger publishing house. I wanted to really take it big with this book. Now during the time of looking for a big publisher, I actually got an introduction to a guy by the name of Greg who lived in California. Now I called Greg, I'm excited about the story. I knew exactly what I wanted. I wanted a hardbound book that was beautiful. I could hold it, I could read it, I could touch it. I was excited. I knew what I wanted that book to look like. I could see it. Now I get on the phone with Greg, and Greg starts telling me, he gets excited. He says, oh my gosh, what an unbelievable story. I love it. It's a fable. There's 4 main lessons that the character learns. This is incredible. People are going to have major takeaways from this book. He says, let me run an idea by you. He says, here's the wave of the future for books. It's a video book. Oh man, authors are loving these video books. I mean, these are unbelievable. Here's how it works. You'll have a book, and we can produce it for you, and it'll kind of tell the story, and then there'll be periods of time in the book where the reader will hit the play button, and it's a video of you sharing more about the story live. It's a visual. And I remember thinking to myself, this sounds kind of hokey. I'm reading a book and then boom, here I pop out on your screen and I'm like telling a story. I'm like, that's too much. I'm an old school kind of guy. Like I knew what I wanted, just that hardback book. I could feel it in my hands. I could read it. I could touch it. That's what I wanted. And he kept going on and on and on about this video book. And finally I said, Greg, I don't know if the video book is for me. It's just not really what I'm interested in. I know what I want. I'm old school. I asked him a direct question. Can you do a hardback book? A hardback book? And he said, absolutely, I can do that for you if that's what you want. So he said, I've got an idea. Let me put together a proposal. I'll send that proposal to you. We'll schedule a call for next week. You look through the proposal and we'll talk about it. I said, Greg, that sounds perfect. So it wasn't the huge publisher that I wanted, but I was thinking, well, we'll take a look at what Greg has to offer. So the meeting was on a Tuesday. I get the email on a Monday from Greg. So I get the email, I open it up, and it was a proposal for guess what? The video book. Now I thought to myself, I've been in sales for a long time. I'm totally fine. If he sends me the proposal on the video book, he thinks it's an unbelievable idea, I'm more than happy to look at the hard numbers, to take a look at it on paper, that's fine. But let me go through the rest of this proposal and let's actually see the information on the hardback book. So I go through the entire proposal. There's no information on the hardback book. I couldn't believe it. I'm thinking to myself, now even though he felt that what I wanted was not right, and the video book was the way to go. He didn't even show me what I wanted. Now, I've been in sales a long time, so as soon as I got on the phone with Greg, because remember, yeses and nos are great. I'm not a big fan of maybes. I don't like that fence of indecision. So we get on the phone for the meeting, and Greg's like, did you get the proposal? Isn't it unbelievable? Can you see the video book? Can you picture somebody reading it? The videos pop out. And I said, Greg, I don't know if we're a good fit to work together. I said, I made it pretty clear to you that I wasn't interested in the video book. I would have been absolutely fine if you would have shown me the video book and what it looked like, if you would have also sent me the information for what I actually wanted. Even if you didn't think that was right for me and the video book was better, I would have appreciated if you sent that. As a result of that, I think I'm probably going to go another direction. See, because he didn't provide, even though he thought it was wrong and there was something better. If he had provided the hardback book, maybe I would have published the book with Greg's company. It turns out I ended up going to John Wiley & Sons, Own Your Success. For those of you that have seen it, you have a copy. It's a nice hardback book, and it became a bestseller. But I did it through another company because I walked away from that opportunity because Greg didn't listen. Greg wanted the control himself rather than letting me have the control. Now, in that situation, even though I really did want a hardback book, and that's what I ended up doing, have there been times in your sales process where even if you know what the client wanted, maybe it was wrong, clearly wrong, would it have been beneficial for the sales process to provide what they wanted as an option, but then to respectfully speak to why that option wasn't best for them based upon what they'd already shared about their situation? To speak in words that resonate with that client based upon what their wants and needs are. That's how you gain control in the sales process. You listen to the client. You deliver what they want. You speak in terms of things that resonate with their situation, their wants, their needs, because you're helping them. Remember, the sales process is all about them. If you focus on these 3 C's, courage, customization, and control, the client will end up having what they want. One of the nice things that happens when you embrace these 3 C's, you provide a unique sales process that will drive success, and it will cause people to enjoy, be fully engaged in the relationship that you have, and you mark my words, you'll start to get referrals without even asking. Now, one more topic on sales language that I wanted to cover in addition to the 3 C's today is something that I call victory language. So it's really 2 ways that you can use it. Number 1, I think if you're fired up and excited and passionate about what you have the opportunity to offer to a client, there's nothing wrong with explaining to that client, I am so excited after hearing your story to have the opportunity to partner with you to create victories for your company and for the legacy that you're writing. Share your enthusiasm, share your fire, share your passion. Let them know you're ready to create a victory together. But this victory language is also a way to help people get off that fence of indecision. Imagine using it this way. Let's say you talk to somebody in February. They share their goals, they share their dreams, they share everything that they want for their company. And then all of a sudden you start following up, you set some closing meetings, you start to educate them, and they're just not making a decision. But you know that that decision is critical for them to actually achieve their wants, their needs, and their goals. So now imagine we get to July. You followed up as they wanted, and they still haven't made a decision. I've seen many sales individuals that in these situations, they'll say, hey, I'm getting to the end of the year. I'm pushing for a sales contest. I'd really love if you bought this because, yeah, you definitely need it, but it'll help me win this contest. I've seen so many individuals make the process about them rather than the client. This is a way that you can get people off that fence of indecision and to keep it about the client. And the more you keep it about the client, you'll win your sales contest if that's important to you. Imagine sending an email. You send it to Sarah, and you say, Sarah, when we got together in February, and I can't believe how fast this year's blowing by. It's July. You mentioned that X, Y, and Z were so important to you. I think it would be such a significant victory for you for us to get back together, Walk through some of those options and see how it'll make a difference in your ability to hit your goals this year. I'd love to talk about creating that victory for you. Now that's a way, it takes a little bit of courage to get a yes or a no, but it's a polite way of putting it right in their face and saying, this was important to you. These are the goals that you said you wanted. What's the opposite of a victory? A loss. Now, I don't think there's many people who wake up and say, hey, today I want to be a loser. I hope I lose. People want to win. People want to create victories. And you have the ability with your products, with your services, to put together ways for people to achieve victories. And sometimes you have to be direct and to let them know that sometimes you have to make a decision to get the victory. Now, the last thing I want to share with you today, it's reviewing your prize fighter day. Remember at the beginning of round 2, I just asked you the question, what is that big goal? Right? What is that Super Bowl? What does that Lombardi trophy look like for you? If you want to get to the end of the year and hoist that Lombardi trophy just like the New England Patriots, does it make sense for you to focus on the process or the results? I think we know that the New England Patriots faced adversity that we talked about. But what they did was they stayed committed. Not to just saying we're going to hoist the trophy. They believed it. They had an expectation. They had the culture of greatness to achieve it. But every day they pulled it down, they put it right in front of their face, and every individual owned their piece of the process. Just like Jonas Gray, he owned his piece of the process with the daily work that would put the team in position to win a Super Bowl trophy. If you want to achieve that big goal you just cast into your imagination, the one that you thought about, what is the daily process, if you put all your goals together, that will drive success for you personally, professionally, and in your service to others? I've seen incredible individuals do unbelievable things all over the world. The Super Bowl championships to driving companies to 50 million, 60 million, 70 million in sales. For individuals to triple their financial services practice, to triple their sales and to win sales awards in their companies by focusing on their prize fighter days. The key, it's your ability to choose what you want to do every day that's connected to the daily disciplines that will drive success. One thing you'll see consistently every month, round 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way through round 12, is we're going to follow up and I'm going to ask you about your prize fighter day. It may drive you crazy sometimes. Maybe you already have one and you're loving it. Maybe you're trying to figure out what yours looks like, but at some point in time, that flip of the switch is going to go up. You're going to find out exactly what you want your prize fighter to be, and you're going to recognize that those daily disciplines are going to be part of your environment to drive greatness in your life, in your career, and it might just be the difference. I get so fired up having these opportunities to be with you. This was round 2. Next, we're going to come with round 3. I'll bring more fire, more energy, more sales strategies to take you to the next level of greatness in your life. Until then, go do great things.